These kind ladies have given me the opportunity to welcome you all. And I'd like to begin with a very short prayer. Most loving and gracious God, we give you such thanks for Denise and Michelle. They have already taught some of us so much, and we greatly anticipate that all of us in this room will learn so much from them, and we pray that our hearts will change as well as our minds. I want to thank you, God, for blessing us with grant money so that we could bring this wonderful, wonderful experience to everybody. Thank you, dear Lord. We are so blessed. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Thank you both.
So just a couple little housekeeping items. It's okay to take pictures. I know that a lot of people are curious about that. Usually it's when people are in ceremonial dress or doing a ceremony that it's important to really ask if you need to take pictures, but Michelle and I are perfectly fine with that. Phones, if you could politely put them on vibrate, that would be awesome. If you're anything like me, you need a reminder, so that's why I said it.
Yes.
The bathrooms are right there, so just feel free to just leave and do whatever you need to do to make yourself comfortable. There is, on the back here, there is some books. Feel free to leaf through them, and there's some medicines and some shakers. You can touch anything over there. I asked that the stuff in the center, because some of it's sacred items, if you could refrain from touching these items. At the end, if anybody's curious about some of them, Michelle or I can kind of explain a little bit of that at the end. And I think that's, there's coffee. Oh yes, there's coffee over there. Just help yourself whenever. Yeah. Okay.
Bonjour, Anine, and welcome here in Waysville on Treaty 61 territory, the traditional homeland of the Anishinaabe people, the Ojibwe, Chippewa, Algonquians. I wish today to send them greetings from me, from Denise, and from everyone here. I also wish to send greetings to their neighbors, and Wendat from the south. Today, let us acknowledge and honor all First Nations in Canada, Indigenous, Métis, Inuit. And let us give thanks for all their cultures, for their languages, for their teachings and ways of being, and especially for the stewardship and protection of this land that we all love. The stewardship that they have been taking care of this land since time began, and they are continuing to do so. Let us help them protect. I also wish to send out greetings to Mother Earth, upon which we all walk every day, and which is right underneath this concrete. living Mother Earth. Father Sky, home to Grandfather Sun and Grandmother Moon, and all the many, many, many yet unknown brothers and sisters of Mother Earth, and everyone who lives out there. Greetings to them. Greetings also to the rock people that make up the body of Mother Earth. Greetings to the flying ones that we call birds. Greetings to the swimming ones in the waters. Greetings to the shape changers, who sometimes are called insects. Greetings to beauty and balance, to our closest relatives, the four-legged ones. As a Siberian indigenous person from the wolf clan of the Urianshai people on my father's side, and from the Usagi bear clan of the Sinti Roma of my mother's side, and also as a settler here since 1989. I am very humble and very thankful and very, very honored to be here, to be asked to help out and to talk to you today and to bring teachings. Today, together, let us move forward. Let us bring real truth and reconciliation towards everyone that lives here in our beautiful homeland. Let us bring teachings, let us learn, let us study, and then let us become the teacher. To bring teachings into the community, into our families, and into the wider world, so that all together then we can walk into the future in balance, in harmony, and in respect for all cultures and all individuals that live in this sacred and beautiful land. Gichi Megwich, Shayanam, thank you, and good evening to everyone.
So my English name is Denise. My spirit name is Hummingbird Woman. I'm from the Otter Clan. And I was going to briefly do a smudge for anybody that want to participate. I will go around, but I'll kind of just demonstrate it first, so just that everybody knows what we're doing and explain a little bit of it. So on the back table, I do have the four main medicines, which is tobacco is the first, and then we have sage, sweetgrass, and cedar. The sweetgrass is dry, but if you kind of rub it together a little bit and smell it, you'll still be able to smell it. It's kind of hard to get fresh sweetgrass right now. So sage is a woman's medicine, and it is used to cleanse, to take away negativity, and to bring in positivity. So first, before I even show this, the way that we set up is a circle. And the reason we did that as opposed to standing here and have everybody in chairs is because it's long overdue for us all to sit together, for it not to be you and us. So I just wanted to note that. That was one of the reasons we like the circle. So I'm gonna light this and I'm gonna try my very best to be a very, very thin piece so we don't set off smoke detectors.
Modern technology, right?
And then I will demonstrate how I smudge. Now, 90% of my teachings are Anishinaabe, so I'm showing you the Anishinaabe way, because that's the way my grandfather. It's fine. A little bit there.
But it looks
I know, No, I'm just trying not to get us all kicked out by the alarm going off. Did you want to hold this in close so that I can demonstrate? So they say that metal holds on to negativity, so I always do my glasses. And again, this is how I smudge. If you want to smudge, you can. You can pass if you want. And first I cleanse my hands, so there's no use kind of cleansing the rest of my body with dirty hands. So I cleanse my hands. I bring the smoke up over my head. And when I bring it to my head, I'm trying to clear the negative thoughts. I need to put my glasses back on so I can see everybody. So I bring it over my head so that I clear the negative thoughts and bring in the positive. I bring it to my eyes so that I see kindness and positivity. I bring it to my mouth so that I speak kindness to people. And to my heart for the same thing. And you can say anything that's in yourself or out loud that brings positive energy to you. And like Margaret, when you did your prayer, this is a traditional way for starting out a meeting or a teaching circle like this, so that everybody kind of, puts all the junk on the back burner, gets rid of all and we all come in a kind and loving heart and be together in a loving way. So I gotta rewrite this, and then I will walk around. Believe me, I could have the whole place smoked out if we wouldn't set off alarms.
You want some chocolate?
No, I think that I will really set it off. Okay. The other thing is we always use natural materials also. You don't use lighters, you use matches. Here's my swatch. Perfect, thank you. So Michelle's already done. And again, we're just, cleansing our hearts and our souls so we can be together in a kind and loving way, and hopefully so that we can hear each other. Not just you guys hear Michelle and I, but we hear you guys. Michelle, do you want to do a drum or a song or something while I'm going around, just to?
Because what's going on out there, I think it's good for a healing chant for all of us. So, from the Pictish people, to the Sami people, Sweden, Norway, to the Siberian people, all across the north, to the North American people, bear, is the one who gave his life to come down on the sky world to Mother Earth to bring the medicine of healing to human beings. In Siberia, bear is in the east of our medicine wheel, guarding the eastern door from evil spirits. COVID would be one. So the bear is guarding. Here in North America, the First Nations people hold the bear as coming from the west, bringing healing medicine. Many stories about bear medicine. Many of us, we wouldn't say bear. We would call bear grandfather or grandmother. Even the Celtic people did that. They said bear and baby bear, baby Brian is the baby of the bear. So babies were called Brian. And they had Artemis, the goddess of healing, was a bear goddess. She came out of the cave with her baby cub every spring and brought health and healing to the survivors of the winter. And here in North America, it's the same. So it was grandfather or grandmother.
About the sage is Indigenous people have been using it for centuries, but there's also studies in the 1900s of people that use sage essential oils before tests, and they say that college students, they're calmer and they do better on tests. So it's interesting because a lot of the medicines and the ways the Indigenous people have practiced for years, you know, now we're starting to see what some of those benefits are. And we got through it without setting off the smoke alarm.
Is it okay to ask something?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay. Maybe I misheard, but I thought at the start you said sage was for women.
Well, it's a woman's medicine. Some medicines in the Indigenous community, men and women have roles, and that's probably more complicated than I should have started for today.
No, the fact is there's women's medicines and there's men's medicine. but we feel Denise felt comfortable today to talk about women's medicine. That is what she has been initiated to do so far, and that is what she has brought here today as an example. There is also, you can use tobacco. A lot of different native tribes do this smudging different. In the Kayega Longhouse, Kayega Longhouse, when we do not do smudge, the Mohawk people don't smudge. They would smudge with me because I'm a go-between between the tribes, but they use tobacco prayers. It's the same way done in tobacco being put into the sacred fire. And then our Sachem does the prayers for the longhouse. The Apache and Navajo, they would not do it like this. They would take a huge pot, put all the sage in there, massive amount, they would heat it up, and then the hot steam would go all over and you get steamed. So the Lakota people would use sage and cedar, but they would also use other medicines depending on their societies. So it is different a little bit everywhere. We in Siberia, we have sage, but we would use juniper, and we would use birch bark, and we would use mullein. And then we would also make a decoction and spray that. But then you would all get kind of sprayed today, and I don't. I've been not told by the government to teach you that today. So.
Michelle has a wider range of knowledge and different. My teachings have all come from Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee, specifically the Mohawk. So I only feel comfortable teaching what my direct elders have shown me that, yeah.
Yay, yeah.
So are there men's medicines versus women's medicine?
Yeah, and I opened up a can of worms, shouldn't, because that's a whole long conversation, and then Michelle won't get to what she's supposed to say. So we'll do that another day. The only reason I could mention that.
You study up for that next week, okay?
Well, it's not that I have to study for it. It's just it's large, and she's got a whole thing that she wants to say.
Well, that leaves the buck in my hands here.
She gets to do the rough stuff. I did the fun stuff. We all smudge. We've all got a good heart. We're all together, like-minded. And now Michelle gets to do the hard stuff.
Well, I don't know if you want to really hear the hard stuff, but this is a government grant that we got in order from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Ontario, with which I have worked for years and years and years and years as a volunteer, and I've been bringing ceremony and understanding, cross-cultural understanding into different communities. You probably saw me here in Huntsville or down in Gravenhurst when we had the Native Days, or Orillia, all the way down to Toronto and Hamilton and wherever we were. So today what I would like to start is the truth part of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And the truth, in order to understand it, we have to first see where we are, where and how this whole thing with the residential schools and the land that has been taken away, how did that start? What got the buck going, and how can we today, people of the modern 2022, how can we get out of it and move forward? And so I want to go back, and I want to go teach today a little bit about worldview. The worldview of the First Nations here in North America, as well and contrasted against the worldview of the explorers and adventurers, swashbucklers, and settlers. How was this so very different that we end up with one culture overrunning the other and forcing it almost into the ground and into extinction, just like two tectonic plates that collide upon Mother Earth and the one drives the other under. Because that is what unfortunately happened. And it didn't only happen here, and it wasn't done by you guys, so don't feel guilty. It was done around the world, and I'm living proof of it. Let us start with the overview of the Native American indigenous worldview. And this worldview goes circumpolar. This underlying fundamental worldview is also to be found in Siberia, it's found with the Picts, it's found with the Sami, and it's found in many, many other cultures. And all the different native tribes have different teachings here, like Denise said. The Mohawk have different teachings and different customs and different ceremonies than the Anishinaabe. They have different ceremonies and different customs like the Apache, of which I was here many, many years ago, a student with medicine people, and a student with our looking horse and Leonard Crowdog, the Lakota people. The first and foremost piece of worldview that bound every native nation together is that everything is alive. Everything is alive, has a living spirit that you can communicate with directly. You don't need a priest or a middleman. Everything is alive. It is life, living life energy. The source of this living life energy that is neither male nor female, the source of this energy is seen as Gitchimanitu, Jemledo, Wakantanka, Usen, Olgen, Tayobe, Shumpayatisun. But it is neither male nor female. It is what the First Nations people call Great Mystery. And Great Mystery is not to be analyzed in a kind of sort of Bible smudging study or something. It is too big for a human being to comprehend. And it is forever evolving and moving forward into the future. This living life energy is in everything and in everyone. It's in your shoes. It is in your purse. It is everywhere, in your earrings, in your hair, on our glasses, everywhere. A good example for what life energy is this thing here. This here is life energy made in Batesville. You probably get the gist here. This is advertising. Right for CBC radio.
Did not put her up to this.
There is a lady here in town. She combines her own life energy with the life energy of plants. And then she puts it in a jar. It's delicious, and I can buy it. I can take the life energy of the rock people, namely turquoise and lishkoi, sterling silver, and Peter and me, more Peters than me, we put our life energy and we make one of these and one of that, and we sell them to you, and then you give us life and your life energy in the form of your money, And then I can go with that life energy and I can go over there and I can buy this. And why I buy it and why I eat it is because this lady there is a good person. And if I eat her things that she makes, that puts good life energy inside me. And believe you one thing, I do need it. And you know, my student and Peter are the absolute people to ask that that's true. So everything has life energy. And that is very different to what the first explorers here believed. Another fundamental tenet of everything that is here is that this life energy, by great mystery, has created, I should say, not been put, has created our brothers and sisters. Our older brothers and sisters, the rocks. Our brothers and sisters, the plants, the standing people, the green and growing people, and the healing people, some of which are in that gem. And it has created the swimmers, it has created the shape changers. Please don't say creepy crawlers, because those guys are neither creepy nor they are crawling. They just have 6 to 8 feet and they look slightly different than we do. But this is 2022, so we get used to people and beings, living beings, that do things slightly different than we do. So these and our four-legged brothers and sisters came into being through this living life energy. And we, human beings, came into being with whatever was left. And believe you me, it wasn't very much. We don't have long teeth to bite somebody with. Some people do, but never mind. We don't have fur or feathers on our body. We were stuck naked. We do not have the original memory, which nowadays by the scientists is called instinct. Human beings are just left with 2 instincts. The one is the rooting instinct. If you have a little baby, like her granddaughter, and you put your finger, she will turn her face towards the nipple. Because that's one instinct. The other instinct gets the teenagers into trouble. Guess what it is? Yes. These 2 instincts. All the other brothers and sisters of the four-legged and the flying and the swimming variety have original memory. Meaning, if Peter and me raise a baby raccoons that their mother got run over on the road here outside of Batesville, we love them and hug them and feed them and do everything, but they will not get into the workshop and help Peter make earrings. When they are old enough, they will go into the wood pile, hiss and growl at us, and know exactly what a raccoon should eat, what a raccoon should do, how a raccoon should behave, how to be a raccoon. They have the original raccoon memory. And that is for every being other than humans. We need a lot of help. However, our older relatives, the four-leggeds, were also instructed to give us some help. And a leg up and a little bit of fur and something to eat. The life energy of a deer is to feed the wolves, also to feed human beings. So life energy moves through the circle. Thou shalt, however, not waste and kill all of them, like the white people did in the 1800s, and fed it to the people of Toronto and Ottawa, Fat Cat City. You only take what you need to survive, and you give thanks. And when you die, you give your bodies back so that the shape changers can have a bite of you finally. So far, this is not so very different than Christianity, where also the people got created last. The big difference, however, is that in Christianity, people believe that they are the bee's knees and they have dominion over every other living thing. And here, it was exactly the opposite. You have dominion over nothing. And the fact is, you don't need dominion over anything, because private property extended to the clothes you wore and your medicine bag with your personal rock of power and a bear claw or something like this. Everything else, if your lodge burns down and I have 4 blankets, what am I going to do? Give her 2 or 3? Of course. Personal property wasn't really a big thing. It became a big thing when the white people taught the concept of have, but it wasn't really there before. The community functioned with medicine people, and by medicine I don't mean these ibuprofen pills that I put here. I mean spiritual energy of plants, like that, of the plants that we need have. Medicine people. Medicine is a word that the white people use to describe that energy, because the word energy in the 15th and 16th centuries didn't really exist because nobody knew. Now we all know what energy is, and we know what the hydro is, and we know what the internet is, but the word energy wasn't in public speak back then. So the word that they had was medicine. Do not confuse medicine energy and medicine people with medicinal and people that were only in charge of sick people. Everyone had medicine. Everyone went on a vision sit out in the vision pits at Georgian Bay to ask one of these older brothers and sisters like bear and wolf and moose and muskox and buffalo further west to please help them and aid them throughout their life. And we had a personal guardian. Besides personal guardians, we also have clan guardians. My clan guardian in Siberia is the wolf. But all our clans, all the different clans of the Orient Shai have one common clan guardian that sits above it, and that's Eren Omsur, snow leopard. So, snow leopard, Siberian petroglyph. And here, Eren Böru, the wolf, my clan guardians. You talked about your otter clan guardian. So we have clan guardians, we have personal guardians, and we have special tribal guardians. But spirituality, your communication with those guardians is personal and direct. No middleman, no priest. There were communal ceremonies. But when you danced, and dancing was a form of moving meditation and prayer, you talk to your guardians, to your clan guardians, to your personal spirit guides, And the medicine people, like my grandmother, my great-grandmother, my great-great-grandfather, 7 generations back, we were all shamans. Siberian shamans, not to be confused with Native American medicine men and women. 7 generations back, we were all medicine people, and that's why I follow the medicine path. Not only when I was in Europe, but also when we came over here in 1989. Medicine people were mentors. We did not have any doctrines like the Catholic Church. There is no rules. I told Denise again and again and again, and you do you. Because you develop this medicine, and when I'm even older than I'm today, you are going to be here in the center teaching this and others. So your medicine was helped along by a medicine person, a shaman, a Vikachawaka, or in my language, a Kam or an Udaga. My grandmother was an Udaga, my great-grandmother was a Kam, trance shaman. I'm a trance shaman. I go and hand tremble over people in my life with gallstones and cancer and other shit. Sorry. So there was no dogma. There was communal ceremony, however, and there was common ritual. And the rituals you performed yourself, you smudged, you gathered herbs and spices. There were bone setters here that were excellent. If you broke your leg or your arm, they could set it and fix it. And then they would also give you certain mushrooms that would help and fight against infection. Nowadays we have those mushrooms where? Antibiotics. They used to grow underneath the poop of animals. And they still would if these here wouldn't have become extinct. Nowadays these mushrooms are very, 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 very rare. And nowadays we also can just go to the doctor and get antibiotics. There were people that taught the history of the tribe. And there were elders that knew all the lore and legends. So there was not one shaman. The word shaman has jumped the culture bridge from Tungu Siberian into white Western English, meaning a person that does this kind of stuff and others. And government of a tribe worked via consensus, not democracy or majority rule, no, consensus, meaning everyone agrees. And elders would get together with the medicine people, with the leaders of the hunt and the leaders of the camp, and they would decide what to do. Do we need to move camp? What is with the negotiations with the leaders of the neighboring tribe about hunting and fishing? It was consensus that ruled. There were no lies. If you were caught in not a big little fib, yeah, there were those because we are all humans, right? But big lies, like Donald Trump, and big fluffing yourself up bigger than you are really in truth and honesty, nobody would ever, 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 ever take a person like that and make him a leader. Somebody who was quiet, who was a deep thinker, a good orator, somebody who took the time to learn language of the neighboring tribe and their chiefs. Somebody like that would be appointed by the older women and men in the tribe by consensus. So can you imagine what happened when societies like this got confronted with the autocratic, despotic rulers and adventurers that came over here to take and conquer this land? It didn't go over very well because there was no consensus to be found in. So if we have this fundamental worldview, and on top the worldview and ritual and customs of the individual tribes, let's look at what were the explorers and settlers of the 15th, 16th, and 17th century. What was their worldview? And here we quickly run into trouble. Because the first explorers were sent here by their kings, anointed kings, meaning made sacred kings, sacred in the Christian God, to come over here to conquer, to pillage, and to bring riches, specifically gold. And if we look at Jacques Cartier, he was supposed to bring gold and rubies. Do you have any rubies? Give them right now, because that's what we wanted. So they were most of the time the second son of a wealthy landowner in Europe. The second son who was gonna inherit absolutely bloody nothing, because the first son gets everything. So the second son had to find his fortune and his riches in another way. One way was to go into the military, and then we have a problem. 1492, what happened? Who got lost?
Columbus got lost on his way to India.
Yes, Columbus was supposed to go to India and get spices for good old Isabella of Spain. Now, Columbus got lost, ended up in the Caribbean islands, inhabited by 3 million Taino people. 50 years later, he had pillaged, killed, and murdered everyone, and there was only 2,000 left. He took several voyages over there and back in order to bring gold and spices. He was convinced that this was India. And now this is why we have the Indians. The Indians don't like that word, so we are not using it. But Columbus also told everybody where he's been. And so very quickly, all the other kings, when they heard about it, they sent people over here, explorers and adventurers, so that they could bring back riches. John Cabot was sent over here and went all the way down the coast to the Chesapeake Bay. He wanted to get fish and find fishing grounds, and that's what he did. Other explorers were basically after riches for themselves and for their kings. They were stout Christians. But the Christianity they followed was quite different from what you guys hold true in your hearts today. There was a God, and he was white. His son was blonde and blue-eyed. And so was the Virgin Mary, and I still don't know how she got that baby. Pass it around. I have a different idea about that, but I'm not supposed to talk. Don't go there. So there was a God, and he was white. And since everybody that he approved of was made in his image, as soon as you were not white and not Christian, you were called a savage, a heathen, or a, what was the other B?
Barbarian.
Barbarian. You were not considered a human being. So if you're not considered a human being, I can just go and come over and Wuchsmeister you. It's like squashing a fly. Nobody would think anything of it. And so that's what they did. They came over here and they did just that. The thing was, I am supposed to play this. Medicine power. The first explorers did not care very much what the native people believed in and how they worship, if they smudged or if they didn't, or how, if they had an altar that was a buffalo skull, or if they had an altar like this with a smudging shell in the middle, and lots of mashkiki medicine. But they, of course, had more clergy with them. On every boat, there was at least one priest. And if he was gonna see this, what did you think he was thinking?
Has to get rid of it.
Witchcraft, exactly. Witchcraft and devil worship. There is something with horns here. Medicine people of the First Nations around here, and also in Siberia, we used to wear horns and antlers and feathers as a symbol for more than ordinary knowledge. Knowledge that we acquired in trance and altered states of consciousness. And you have to think about the Middle Ages, not only what happened here, or let's say the 1500s, after the Middle Ages. They had just survived the plague, and the witch hunt in Europe was in full swing. So if you was a priest, and you come over here and you see me doing this, priest, what would you say?
I'd say keep going.
I think so too. But we didn't have you back then. We should have. You should have been the one to accompany Jacques Cartier. Things would have turned out different.
They would have said get rid of it.
They would have immediately feared the existence of witchcraft and devil worship. Now, not all of them thought like this, but many did. Others were thinking, oh my goodness, these are the lost tribes of Israel. I'm not quite sure what that is. I have to read up on it tonight at Google. But others, yet again, they thought, well, these are all innocent. And we have to go and we have to come over here and we have to Christianize them and bring them into the true faith. They really, really, truly believed this with the depths of their heart. That was the time back then. There, however, was another problem. And that problem was good old Mehmed II of Istanbul. What does he got to do with this? Well, see, the popes back then, and every of the discoverers knew the doctrines of the Pope and what the doctrine said. And the last doctrine that came out before good old Columbus
Got lost on his way to India. I know my lines.
was to curtail good old Mehmed II, right? Where are we here? Mehmed II. Yeah. Mehmed II was come out in 1452. I have to read this because this is too horrible to learn by hand or even wrap my brain around it. 1452 was what? How many years before good old
1452, 1492 was Columbus sailed the ocean blue.
40 years. 40 years before Columbus got
Lost on his way to India.
1452. The Dam Diversa, until different, is a papal bull issued on the 18th of June 1452 by Pope Nicholas V. That was not Saint Nicholas who's coming on December 6th. No, it was Pope Nicholas. He authorized Alfonso V of Portugal. What does he have to do with that? To conquer all Saracens. What is a Saracen and what does he have to do with the Anishinaabe? A Saracen is what was called a person from the Middle East. They were called Saracens and were the enemies of the Pope. Mehmed was an up-and-coming leader of the Islamic faith. The Islamic faith was an enemy of the Pope and Christianity back then. There were wars fought about this. So, good old Pope Nicholas V authorized Alfonso V of Spain to conquer the Saracens and any pagans. Any pagans? Interesting. And consign them to perpetual slavery and servitude. And this is exactly what it said. I mean, it was in Latin, but we translate it. We grant you by these present documents, with our apostolic authority, full and free permission to invade, search out, capture, and subjugate. Subjugate. Horrible word, I hate that. All the Saracens, well, there aren't any here, or are there? Nope. And any pagans, and any other unbelievers, and or enemies of Christ, wherever on this earth they may be, as well as conquer and take away their kingdoms, duchies, counties, principalities, and any of their properties, and to reduce their persons into perpetual servitude. The Europeans needed slaves to run their duchies because the plague had taken so many people. The 100-Year War had taken so many people. The bond servants, the indentured servants that did not even own the rags that were on their shoes. There wasn't enough to have more riches. The forests were chopped down. You needed firewood. So Europe was in trouble. And you can always have a couple of more riches, right? A couple more million, you know. So this bull, 1452, was taken literally by good old Columbus when he got lost on his way to India and was executed and killed all the Taino on the islands. It was also excellent to subdue any other people that lived here on North America. And then came the next papal bull. On May 4th, 1493, Pope Alexander V issued the papal bull known as Inter Carta that provided Portugal and Spain the religious backing to expand their territories in Africa and in the Americas for the sake of spreading Christianity. This papal bull said that land not inhabited by Christians can be claimed by barbarous nations, need to be overthrown, brought to the faith itself, or killed. And that gave our swashbuckling second sons, adventurers and explorers, the God-given right to come over here and take this land by force. They put their flag in the ground. I hereby rename Batesville Michelville. And don't you dare to say anything against that. You know what that is? That's cultural violence. Renaming something that is not yours, or taking it away, or renaming a person. I was renamed. I had another name that my father gave me. That was not allowed. I became a number in that orphanage that they stuck me because my parents weren't Christian. So the first explorers had these priests with them. These priests honestly believed that they had to convert the heathens as fast as possible, and if not, then by force. They had also reported back to the Pope what they found here. And it was deemed that the native nations, the heathens here, all followed witchcraft. The next fundamental belief system, of course, was also that God protects his people from diseases. This is why they all survived the plague and others didn't. So when the diseases broke out here, brought in by the white settlers, and the native people died by the thousands, it was seen as a sign, a holy sign from the Christian God, that he wanted to get rid of the First Nations people and all indigenous people here on this land. This was honestly and truly what they believed. If all the natives die, if all the First Nations die, that's God's will. Because Christianity back there had different tenets that we wouldn't even think about today. If a pregnant woman was in trouble giving birth, she was baptized when she was a baby, so she was okay to die. You cut out the baby and you Christian it because it was about the collection of souls. The more, the merrier. You needed souls. The human being, the human body, the human integrity was not valued as high as the soul. The soul had to be saved. And that is still a tenet of Christianity. And it's a big problem because nowadays we would never sacrifice the mother in order to be able to baptize the baby. Luckily, nowadays this doesn't exist anymore. But back then, that was another tenet, what they did. So it was okay that all the natives died by the thousands from the diseases. some of the settlers also had traders that started to do trading posts like this. They gave trinkets for fur and for food and for all kinds of other things exchanged. But some of these settlers, they also brought pock-infested blankets into later on reservations, but also into the villages. They brought alcohol, which was mixed with ergotamine. And I don't know if you guys know, ergotamine is moldy wheat, and it's a poison. It makes you sick. They brought that, and they gave that to the First Nations, so they died even faster. Many, many, many natives converted to Christianity. For the native people here, First Nations, indigenous, they were well versed with different kinds of spirits. They had seen different ways of worshipping in different villages and tribes and their neighbors. The Anishinaabe knew how the Mohawk did things, and the Mohawks knew how the Cherokee did things because they went down there and visited. And then they came back up and they told the stories about it. That was great for the winter. So there was a tolerance there. And if the white priests that came here started to talk about God and the devil, Vadiyata, and he being a bad one. The devil has always been a Christian construct in order to enforce compliance to doctrines. The native people were very well versed with tricksters, and they saw the devil as nothing other than a trickster. We have tricksters here. Nana Bojo is a trickster. We know all about tricksters, so yeah, sometimes they do something good and most of the time, nah. But there was a new one, and it has been brought in by the settlers, and they say if we go to Mass and if we take communion, then we can avoid that guy. So everybody would come and just, you know, one more spirit of the Christian people, one more bad spirit to be gotten rid of, and they were okay with coming to communion and coming to the ceremonies in the Christian gatherings. But that didn't change what they did at home. The ceremonies, the smudging, the chants, the songs. Now the Christian have always been very, very, very afraid of the drums and drumming, because it leads you into trance. And in trance you can see the spirit of what you believe, and you can have a direct communication. It also takes fear away. It calms. That's why we have drum circles. Bracebridge is a great drum circle. As long as we don't have a stupid pandemic, we are drumming. So all these things were seen as devil worship. And then many native people coming to Mass, but following their own belief system, was seen as duality, and duality is a sign of heresy. And so it was yet another reason. If you are a heretic, I can take your land away. And that yet again gave the excuse to be able to take away land. Is there anything I forgot to tell you? Yes, eventually here, over the years, all three Abrahamic religions, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, the people who followed them were recognized as human beings. All others, heathen and savages, needed to be Christianized ASAP and their world view and habit wiped off the earth. Indigenous were not persons and had no rights. Killing an Indian was not murder. The concept of different cultures and the respect for different cultures that we all have right now. Who believes that different cultures are deserving of respect? See, that's what consensus is. So, but that did not come into the mindset of Western worldview until 1886, brought in by Sir James Fraser, who said the Celtic people have a distinct culture. The native people, I think it's a distinct culture. Maybe the Mohawks have a different distinct culture. And maybe the Saracens, Islam, it's a different culture. It's not a culture bound in land, but in belief. So this tolerance came up the last 150 years. While the explorers that were sent over here had a nation-to-nation relationship with the First Nations. Nation to nation. When the settlers came by the hundreds and by the thousands, you were a bondservant. You just didn't even own the rags on your feet, but you managed to get your wife and your child to the boat in London. You were put on the boat and you were sent over here to settle the land, because land that is settled cannot be conquered by another nation. The English and the French tried to settle Canada as fast as possible, because when it was settled by believing Christians in Christian settlements with fences around them and churches, the Spaniards and the Portuguese couldn't come and take the land because they got the permission by the Pope. Why did the English not get the permission from the Pope? Because the Pope had a beef with King Henry VIII. He was okay with sort of with King Henry VII, but King Henry VIII, and then Lutheranism, and then the King James Bible. You know all about that, right? So the Pope wasn't really keen on the English kings. So the English, they thought different. If we go really fast and we take Denise's garden and we put a church there, then nobody can come and take the land, because the land is settled by believing Christians. And that's what happened, especially here in Canada. In the States, many people got just conquered. I mean, they came with an army and they ran over people. Here it was colonization, colonization, colonization. Take away the land, take away your garden, take away everything. The native people tried to make treaties with the settlers and their representatives. And the treaty said we'd give you all the land. The Robson-Huron Treaty. We just want this reservation where we can live. We could even build a fence around it and let you put a church there. That's okay. But we want to be able to hunt in this land and to fish. And first Canadians said, oh, okay, we can do that. And then we had a treaty signed. But no sooner was the treaty signed than it was broken, because settlers wanted more land. And they wanted more land, and they wanted more land. Actually, you know what? They wanted all the land. And even the First Nations that were converted to Christianity, and I mean truly converted, they still were bloody Indians and they were no human beings, and I could grab them and take them off the land. And when there was no more Indians to take off the land, guess what they did? The white people started to fight each other. War of 1812. The Acadians had a different belief system than whoever was there that conquered them. Peter, do you remember who conquered the Acadians and sent them packing?
The English.
The English. Ah, okay. Well, there you hear it. They took the Acadians, believing Christians, off their land, stuffed them on a boat, and threw them overboard halfway to Louisiana because they didn't want to go all the way down and there was too many mosquitoes. So the white people turned on each other. Native people ended up on both sides of that conflict. Native people were shoved out of their own homelands into the homelands of their neighbors and into the homelands of their enemies. The Ojibwe were shoved further and further and further back until they somehow encountered the Lakota, and the Lakota did not like us. The Cree people were in trouble. Everybody was in trouble. One person had guns traded from the white people, from the French. The other one had other guns traded from the English people, and they fought on both sides. And of course the diseases keep on raging. And the settlers brought smallpox, cholera, measles. The first settlers that came to Turtle Island wiped out about 90% of 100 million people, so there was just 10 million left. That was about 1650, from 100 million to 10 million. But then diseases wiped out 50, 60, 70% of these people. Right now, in Canada, we only have 8% First Nations people. That's not very many. Of course, shamans and healers, medicine people, yet again, medicine people, with ibuprofen this time, medicinal, we were at the forefront of these terrible diseases. And of course, what happened, we also got sick and we died. And we were always on the front line. And that was seen as a good thing because it was a proof to the truly believing Christians that we were wrong, that the native people were supposed to die out. 3 weeks ago, bad example, but 3 weeks ago, Peter and me were still on vacation in Missouri. On a campground. There was a guy with a leaf blower and somebody else was cutting branches from the trees, and it was kind of sort of really loud. And I'm a bit hearing impaired and so on. So we thought we're gonna get another spot somewhere else, but for that I had to go and talk to the ranger, right? So I went to the ranger and I was just talking, listen, there is so much noise everywhere, and can we get, and in comes another white man. And he went right over me and he said, I have to talk to you about this and this and this, and this doesn't work and this. And I said, excuse me, please. I was talking to the ranger, and he looked at me and he said, you are supposed to be extinct. How dare you talk to me? I bet this was a Trump voter. It still happens. 3 weeks ago. And so this is still alive today. Luckily, we are still here. You thanks to your granddad. And let's see. Yeah, I'm giving the word over to you because after that one, I think I should sit down. Did you make my chance?
So, if you hadn't noticed, we did try and do a little bit of humor in there. This is a heavy subject, and we want it to be a little bit fun. The other thing is, nobody likes to sit and listen to somebody drone on for hours and hours, so I thought maybe we could do like a little bit of a discussion about a few of the topics that Michelle had talked about. A short story, she kind of briefly talked about my grandfather, so I'll tell you that story. Just growing up, my grandfather told me about talking to his dad, which would be my great-grandfather, Père. So I'm Métis as well as Anishinaabe. And he would go to school and get tormented. They would call him Little Indian Boy. I remember going to a family reunion, and of course I'm little, so I'm ignorant at this point. I'm like, where did all the Indians come from? Okay, I have to speak up, sorry. I have a bad habit of doing that. So I asked my dad where Indians come from, because my family, as much as, so my grandmother's white and my mom's white, so I got a little more of the white features, where my cousins got a little more of the indigenous features. But anyways, my grandfather went to his dad and said, look, everybody's picking on me, they're calling me Little Indian Boy, are we Indian? And he got backhanded so hard, he said he bounced off the wall. And it was hard for him because he knew who he looked like, he knew who he was, but he wasn't allowed to be it. And I held a lot of anger for that once I started doing my healing and reconnecting with white culture. That he could have, brought some of that back then. But then my husband mentioned at that point, if anybody had known that my grandfather was Indigenous, he could have been taken to the residential schools. And the mandate was to kill the Indian out of the child, right? And once you killed the Indian out of the child, and you're acknowledging, then, then they could accept the Lord and then be saved. And again, as Michelle said, that was what was truly believed back then. So a couple of these discussion questions are a little bit hard. I'm going to have a really nice, gentle one. I'm a little trauma-informed, and I don't want to send anybody home with their heads kind of going. But I thought maybe we could talk about, so when my kids were really little, I'll regress for just a second, sorry. I used to take them to the retirement homes and the nursing homes in Huntsville. And we would go every month, if it was Valentine's Day, they would make little cards and whatnot. But it wasn't just because, I wanted that. I wanted my children not to look at a person in a wheelchair and be shy. You started out going, and they would be like this and be scared of the wheelchair or scared of the woman who because she can't talk. And I didn't want my kids to have that, so you didn't go there. So going back to what Michelle said, and I'm going to open this up for a discussion, I wonder what it would have been like for, and you look at different cultures, British can be very, prim and proper and there's rules. And then you come here and you see people with horns and feathers and they're dancing and they're touching the ground and what would it be like? Like, what would you think? If I was all of a sudden to just strip down naked and start dancing in the center, you guys would be like, oh, what do you guys think? Does anybody else have an opinion on what it must have been like to see the Indigenous culture from the perspective of people coming in the past?
Which is totally unfamiliar
Yeah.
with anything that they've experienced and against what the beliefs were and their worldview.
Yeah.
I remember going on a trip to South America and taking us to a village where there were Native people and they were in various stages. They weren't naked, but they had little clothing on, and thinking how backward that was. I mean, this is some years ago for me too, but how they weren't brought into the modern world kind of thing. I wasn't afraid of it, but I guess it was just, again, very different from the way that I had been brought up.
So let me clarify. I am not saying that as Indigenous people we're stripped down naked and all dancing. I just want to clarify that. That was just, I have this habit. I mean, my personality is not as flamboyant as Michelle to do gross exaggeration to just get the point across. So no, we don't do that. But
This was a hot climate, let me just say that.
yes, okay.
But, yeah, it was sort of like going back in time for me, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. And who knows? I mean, you know, you teach your little kids, you don't, you know, to say please and thank you, and another culture they don't. Or, you know, the Japanese, when they drink their soups, they slurp, and it's polite, it's not rude. And when I had students at my house, I taught my kids, don't you dare saying that that's rude, because that's their culture. Anybody else have any comments or, yeah?
People coming over from Europe who come with this sense of superiority and a condescending view and a complete lack of comprehension that there might be another way to look at life rather than conquer nature, live with nature. And that would be just, I mean, that's crazy. They built boats to get over. And so everything is about technology, attack the world and overcome it. They come here and they have no idea how to respect or understand. And of course, like I'm Anglican, I'm not Roman Catholic, I respect Pope Francis, but there has been a lot of papal bull over the years. And, you know, there has been, and I think the church refused its own faith and role with politics, power, and becoming a vehicle of domination and power and conquest for economic reasons and so forth. The church tends to take sides politically, and certainly by the Middle Ages. And another thing that struck me, the church forgetting its own teaching. In the 3rd century, we were taught that if a child dies unbaptized, its own death baptizes him or her, okay? Like, there's no need for this, oh my goodness, we have to, you know, and yet this idea pervades, and yet, well, we have to baptize. You know, it just got away from its own tenets. I don't think Jesus would recognize behavior of his representatives, and, you know, and so these are all the things going through my head.
Yeah, the thing there is in Christianity, and that's also what First Nations worldwide find out, it is do as I say, not as I do.
Mm-hmm.
And that undermines everything the minute you say Christianity, because you see the living examples of that. And the infallible, the fact that the Pope and his papal bulls are absolutely 100% truly infallible to this day, and not even a more modern and open Pope can revoke an old papal bull. The only thing he can do is to bring new teachings. And so he apologized here. But the native people say it wasn't enough because they want the intercarta removed, the doctrine of discovery removed. Because then the hope of some of them is that because it undermines all the civil law in Europe and everywhere, in Africa, everywhere. It was the foundation of the first laws upon which other laws have been built, upon which constitutions, our Canadian Constitution has been built. And so it's the undermining thing. Now, if you pull this out and says this is not valid anymore, the moral result of this would be that all the land today reverts to the native people. And we all know that, and also the native people, First Nations, know that that is not possible. So, but they say he should make a statement and revoke the doctrine of discovery. Now, many scholars say that this doctrine of discovery, meanwhile, in this modern world of 2022, is null and void. It is not being practiced anymore. That generally may be true, but I remind you all, on 2005, in the good old United States down south, so luckily not here, when our beloved and revered democratic Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg used the doctrine of discovery and its tenets to deny the Oneida people a piece of land that they had a treaty on and that they wanted to get returned. So it is a very, very deep foundation underneath, and you can pull it out when you need it, and that is the fear. And it has been done, and that's why they want to get rid of it. Not that Batesville all of a sudden becomes a reservation or a native, or all us the white people will all get onto a reservation. I have to go home to Siberia. Where are you gonna go? Yeah, so that's not, but they want the assurance that this is never, ever, ever gonna happen again, and nobody's gonna pull that old piece of shit back out and holding it up, and because if you look at it from a Canadian point of view, the danger is kind of sort of minimal. What would you say then? But if you look at the fundamental Christians in the United States of Busch Gardens down there, it isn't. They pull that stupid thing out, they hold it up high, and they use it against people of color, people of different belief system, and all kinds of things. This is not so very far away, and it's happening today. And then we have good old Trump, which I hate, sorry, have to be honest, but who fosters these fights and these tribes? And when we travel through the country, we see this in the States. We see the fundamental Christians and their belief system. And baby Jesus over everything. So for Native people, we are all burned by that. And we don't want this to happen again, so that's why we want this thing revoked.
Michelle, what does it actually say this time in discovery?
Well, it has a couple of pages, isn't it? Let me just find it here. I read it earlier.
Well, you're looking for that. I just wanted to make a note. This is why I like, one, the circle, and I like the fact that we're together. Like, one of the concerns, Michelle and I, when we were doing some of this is, I don't want to put down your religion just to make a point of mine.
Yeah.
So when you are saying some of this stuff, it feels better, because then it's not like, it's not tit for tat here. I'm not here to tell everybody that, you guys are the reason that, all these children. It's just learning so that we can change the patterns for the future and we don't make the same mistakes. And we can't do that if it's us and you. We can only do that if we're all together, right? Sorry, go ahead, Michelle.
Yeah, the doctrine of discovery was to see the Pope made a line. Everything east of that line was given to Portugal. Lots of colonies in Africa, and he thought that North America and South America went straight down the line and we wanted to give half and half. Only that's not how the world looks and that's not it works. So it was everything east of Cape Verde went to the Portuguese king, and everything west of Cape Verde went to the Spanish king. And so he divided the world. How dare he, but anyway. So the Inter Carta provided Portugal and Spain the religious backing to expand their territories in Africa and the Americas for the sake of spreading Christianity. The papal bull said that land not inhabited by Christians can be claimed, while all barbarous nations need to be overthrown and brought to the faith. And I have another piece of paper back here, maybe that makes more sense than this one here. The blueprint of conquest. Doctrine of discovery. Invade, search out, capture, vanquish, and subdue all pagans whatsoever and wherever they may be found. Wherever in place their kingdoms, dukedoms, principalities, dominions, possessions, and all movable and immovable goods, including that gem over there, and into your personal possession, so that is into the possession of the conqueror, and to reduce their persons to perpetual slavery, and to apply and appropriate to himself and his successors their kingdoms, dukedoms, countries, principalities, dominions, possessions, and goods, and to convert them all to his and her use and profit. And there we have it, profit. And I think that thing sucks.
And you're saying it's still on the books today?
It's still on the books today, and we are all scared shitless, and that's why we want to get rid of it. No such luck, because church doctrine says that no pope can ever revoke what another pope said.
And talking about how this is not like so far in the history, just a reminder that the last residential school in Ontario shut down in 1990. You know, like that just blows my mind. I have friends that have been through residential school. I've had teachers that have been through residential school, and we will get more into that later.
We will get into that on the third day of teachings. It's rough. It's rough for you guys to hear this. But the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, there is a lot of people that believe that it was just about a whole bunch of bad schools. It's not. It's really, really, really not. It is about cultural genocide in general that has been going on over hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. And it is about why the First Nations and Indigenous people don't really trust the churches, because we all have been burned so very, very, very badly. I still have the words on my neck. So that is what is at the heart. And the Truth and Reconciliation Commission stands for, you have to tell the people the truth, because a lot of these truths have not been taught when you guys went to school. They didn't want you to know that. That's all the dirty laundry.
Right, like concentration camps, I remember my kids learning. I have my son, sorry, I have 4 kids, only one son, is very, very sensitive. And, you know, he could barely speak for 2 days. He was so upset over listening to all this. And yet in our own back doors, we're not hearing this. We're not hearing about, you know, a little bit about the water on the reserves, or a little bit about how much it is to eat. When I was up on in Moose Factory, you know, I phoned my husband. I'm like, a brick of cheese is $15, and a bag of apples is $25, and you know, and then you wonder why they eat chips and pop and end up with diabetes, and because it was chips and pop are cheap, right? So, sorry, I again went off in left field. I'm sorry.
Anything?
Did anybody else want to talk about that particular part of it? Yeah? Oh, sorry.
No, you go ahead.
Okay.
I would just, on the original question and sort of flipping a little bit from the answers and the sort of the reflection we've had, there might have been some individuals that were looking at it and saying, that's interesting, and they had come from such repressed societies and had to conform, or they were ostracized, that they might have actually said, this looks fun, like, or this looks like a more relaxed society, a more
Yes.
inclusive society. They might have, but they would have never acknowledged it or done
Or-
anything about it.
Or they
because-
could have been killed,
Yeah.
right?
And the majority of the European settlers that came over here, they were wealthy. No, they
Second
They
son.
were, number one, but that was the explorers, but the settlers, they were stuffed on these boats. In Europe, you had no rights, right? You think about what happened in Europe at the same time. They were bond servants. They had not even the right to their own name. They were indentured servants. You get a piece of land and you work it and you can eat a bag of potato, a little bit of potato and a cabbage and maybe a pound every 6 months or so. And you work the land for me, you work the land for me, your child works the land for me. And how dare you do another Brian that I now have to feed? They had not even a right to their own sexuality. So when there was the possibility to go on one of these boats and come over here and be free and get an itty bitty bit of rocky land somewhere out east of Bracebridge, they would come. Right? Because think about what a regular poor person in Europe would do. They labored in factories that cut the wood and made charcoal out of for the first factories, for the industrialization. Cutting down the trees. There was nothing there anymore. A chicken in 1850 cost 4 monthly wages. So nobody could afford one. You were not allowed to hunt in Europe. Hunting was the privilege of the king and the lords and the upper class. In the forests, you were not allowed to cut any trees in the forest because most of the forests had been chopped down. And then we had all the wars and everything was leveled. And there were these, like the Black Forest, that was beautiful, but it was owned by a, what was it? Barbarian king, yeah, exactly. So the king could go and hunt there for his personal pleasure. But there was no way that you guys could all go out and get yourself a deer. You would be hanged. So many of the indentured servants, they were eating the rats and mice that they caught. That was dinner. Of course, most of them never made it over here. But the people who made it over here, they had this dream of an open land. A little bit of land, and maybe a little garden, and maybe a goat, and maybe a chicken, and maybe 2, and maybe we could eat some eggs if we have more than 1 chicken. And that's why they came over here, because there was nothing to be found in Europe anymore that was any good, unless you were rich. And not all of us were.
Over to Margaret, she has some.
Oh, yes. My husband and I had the privilege of being with the Maori tribe. And they were, of course, cooking in the earth. And we weren't the only ones there. There were a bunch of a tour group came along. And my husband David was so fascinated with them cooking in the earth. And I mean, I'm sure he was bugging him a bit because he's hanging around trying to learn all about it. And so they offered him opportunity to eat what they were cooking, which he was enthusiastic about. And some of the people on the tour were, it was so embarrassing because they were, ooh, you know, I guess because it was cooking in the earth, the food was delicious. But it really struck me how when people don't know, they react so poorly. It was embarrassing.
People look at the earth as dirt, where, you know, gardeners know. Anybody who's a gardener, you know, you get your hands in there, the smell of the dirt. It is an actual antidepressant. And, yeah, I mean, it's a total different mindset. And I still don't know if I could eat the little, what do you call them? They're not creepy crawlers, they're creepy crawlers. What do you call them? Shape changers, sorry. It just went whoosh. I didn't want to say creepy crawlers out loud because I didn't want to get just kidding.
Insect.
Yes. I'm still having a hard time eating insect, but anyways.
Come to my house. In June and July.
Coming to her house is interesting. We gutted a turkey and ate it, like right from the whole, yes. You never know what's going to happen at Michelle's house. Yes.
I can guarantee that. You are all welcome to my house for teachings. Sit in the circle on the bare fur and.
Did anybody else have anything they wanted to talk about? This question is kind of for me. I want to know, like Michelle talked about how different Christianity was when the settlers first arrived on Turtle Island, which Turtle Island, I don't know if she explained that, is America, compared to now. And I just wondered, as people, as I say, this is to go back and forth, what are some of the differences that you see from then as opposed to now?
This land was open and beautiful, and now we put a whole bunch of concrete on it, and
I'm talking about the difference in Christianity. Remember when you said Christianity? Sorry, you didn't hear I probably didn't say it loud enough. I have this habit of getting too quiet. So I'm talking, remember when your speech you were talking about the difference of Christianity back then to what it is now. And it's beyond unrecognizable because nobody in here, I would bet my life on it, would think that we need to kill the Indian out of a child. So, but I'm curious from your point of view, and you guys know more about Christianity than I would, is what differences you see between back then and now.
I don't see any papal bulls having any dominion over me.
Over you.
Over me or the society in Canada.
Right, but it's
Really don't.
legally, they
But
still
under-
can, yeah.
Under what? United Nations?
I know, that
You know,
was.
I mean, how does the Pope have this authority? I don't know if any of the,
the Pope was always seen
Well, I know
as
Yeah.
the representative of God on earth.
But she's saying then as opposed to now, how do,
now?
well, 2000, she gave the example from 2005,
Yeah, that blew my mind.
yeah. So I guess it's one of those things, like Michelle said, it's still there, and until it's abolished, can it still be pulled out? Like, you know, we've seen that happen before. We think we're getting, you know, for the LGBT community, you know, we think that we're gaining momentum, and then all of a sudden there's another bar shut up specifically just because they are different, you know. They have a difference, just like we have horns on our heads that some people think look like a devil's, you know, so it's still, it's just, do you know what I mean? Like, we just don't want it there because it's scary to be there. Why does it have to be there? Like, can anybody tell me? I mean, yes, we maybe want to be able to see the original paper to know where we came from so that we don't go there, but why does it have to be, yeah, no, I know, but I'm just, yeah.
Well, racism is not the exclusive purview of Christian people, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, we maybe see it more often in fundamentalist Christian beliefs that the racism sort of goes part and parcel with their idea of what God is and what the devil is. But racism, I guess, crosses all religions, and
There's racism in
that,
the-
that's going to
yeah.
be the thing we have to fight against. But I don't know how to, well, education, I guess, is the best fight
Yes.
against racism.
Yeah,
And circles like this, but even more diverse, so that you can see someone that looks different, and you realize after conversation that they aren't so different.
Well, because all our practices were, there was a while where it was illegal to do that. Like my kids right from like this big smudged, and it has such a calming effect that my son would come to me and just say, "Mommy, I need a smudge." But there was a time when it was illegal, you know, to practice anything like that.
What does a Native person think, I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
what does a Native person think about the white people sort of taking over the smudging business? It's almost trendy.
Cultural appropriation.
Yes,
So-
exactly.
I cannot answer that for the whole Indigenous community. What I can say is it's the appropriation part is when it's ceremony. Like if I was to, and I am not a knowledge keeper, so I cannot perform ceremonies. If I wanted to do a ceremony with the smudging, but using sage essential oils is something that a lot of, there's the smokeless sage that people use now, and I mean, it depends on, I guess, one, your mindset, and two, whether you're purposely trying to, like if I want to say, okay, I'm
That's
gonna,
another thing that goes into that. And that is AIM, the American Indian Movement, in order to reconsolidate all the different native beliefs. And you are a quarter Ojibwe and a quarter Apache and a quarter Lakota. So what are you supposed to believe? What are you supposed to worship? In 1981, 82, 83, we went on the longest walk to Washington. And Leonard Kodok, my teacher, and Arvo Looking was my older teacher. They went and they gave 4 sacred ceremonies for everyone to follow, so that all native people that are apart native from 4 different tribes, have something to get back to their culture and follow their culture and get away from colonization. One of these 4 sacred ceremonies is the smudging ceremony. It was given as a medicine gift into the world cultures everywhere by the Lakota people. So if you tonight smudge, you have received this gift just as I have received this gift. Everyone has received this gift. However, we also have some self-appointed New Age medicine people that use this gift and the other sacred gifts to aggrandize themselves and to make money, because it's all about money, right? And I charge $1,000 for doing a ceremony, and I'm gonna drive the devil out of this and this and this person, and I'm going to do soul depossessions, and I'm the biggest shaman in the Western world, and I have been initiated by Chief Kukumats the 15th to do all this and whatnot. That is cultural misappropriation. If you smudge at home tonight, please do so. It'll be good.
And just give thanks for where you received it. You know, like if everybody, you know, if they did a smudge, which is kind of the, almost every culture, so the Haudenosaunee, the Mohawks will say Nyawa, but for thank you. But miigwech is kind of general among everybody. If you just say, you know, out loud, miigwech, that I'm able to do this, you know, to just thanks. But when, also with the appropriation, like for you, you would give communion. I'm sorry if I'm not the right religion or whatever, but I mean, when ministers and stuff do communion, not anybody, like you can't just come to my house and say, okay, I'm gonna give you communion. That's cultural appropriation. So it's the ceremony behind it, and it's the intent behind it, and it's the, you know, taking something you don't understand, because only, you know, the ministers understand what goes through that. Smudging is, like she said, it's a gift that's been given.
It has been given into the sacred circle so that everyone can come together, because Black Elk's big vision, that native elder that had the big vision, that all cultures eventually we have to get together. Just think about how it is today. 300 years from now, most of the living people will have black hair and brown eye, because we love each other and we have babies, right? So there will be the odd blonde and blue-eyed guys to fall in love with, but they will be in the minority. And we have, so in order for all the cultures to come together, and in order for the disenfranchised native people from all the different tribes to have something to hold on to, something that you can do in downtown Toronto if you are half Apache, half Cree, and a quarter Kayekahara, and you don't know which ones to follow, and no medicine man or medicine woman will teach you, because you are not 100% of their tribe, and you are not a member of their society. You can do this, but you shall not take it and go and make money with it.
Yes.
And be a pompous ass about it. We have Trump for that, so.
I know.
You were having.
Well, I'm just thinking about the church today.
Yeah.
The church, I think, has gone back to its roots, and our deacon Margaret, our lady Mary, may have different ideas, but we've gone back to our early days, a community of love, respect, reconciliation, and peace, that Jesus was about freedom, not slavery. You don't enslave people in the name of Christ, you know, it's a little ridiculous. In understanding that Jesus was not a Christian, you know, and a place where, as Paul writes, there is no male nor female, no Greek nor Jew, nor Scythian, there is no free nor slave. We're all one, and seeing God in everyone is you know, kind of where we're going. We also know as a church that we're pretty marginalized. I can tell you that not only, unless you're Roman Catholic, I mean, I listen to the Pope's Christmas address because I'm weird, I'm Anglican, but I still listen to the Bishop of Rome sometimes. But I can disagree with him. We have this crazy thing called individual opinions now, the postmodernist world. And the church, believe me, as a priest, I can tell you, I am not infallible in my parish. I know nothing. All right, as I'm constantly reminded. I can't get my own people to do stuff. And I think the pressure, apparently I don't know anything, which is fine. It's like, unlike the old days, we now realize we don't know anything, okay? And that everybody is learning and seeing God in everybody. But I do think the pressure nicely has to be placed on Bishop Francis, because I do think there is a way that can be repealed, the doctrine of discovery. The infallibility thing only started in 1867. And that was a political decision. It had nothing to do with theology. Like 90% of church stuff, whatever we do, you know, oh yeah, that's why we do that. So I think the priests used to get married, and that changed. I'm an Anglican, so I get married. I just haven't made that. That's one error I haven't made yet. That was a joke. That was a joke.
That's okay. I'm not dancing naked in the middle either.
That was
We'll give you that.
the difficult rooms. What? Anyway, so yeah, I do think that could happen because you call it council. And other decisions have been made by the Roman Catholic tradition. I just think it's going to be hard because you're right, you're unraveling centuries of teaching. So we've gone from the linear hierarchy to the broader consensus, a bit like the consensus thing that you mentioned at the beginning. Isn't that where the church seems to be going? Bishop Ann, Archbishop Ann? There's very little, sometimes frustratingly little, top-down direction in the Anglican tradition these days. Thank you. We'll keep working.
Getting married?
I think today we are also with you preaching to the choir.
Exactly.
Because the ones that we would need to reach, it won't come. So when they see that poster of Scruffy Little Myself, they don't forget it. She's got a drum. So, but I hereby call all of you to become teachers in our community, in your homes, in schools. You heard what we said? Build on it. Become teachers, become advocates. Because the minute we know better, we can do better. And we are the grassroots of what we want this country to continue to become. And we are on our way, finally. Finally, a person like me can feel safe, and I've always felt safe in Canada. I've never feel quite safe in Europe, and you know that, and you're struggling with it, because oftentimes he had to go alone. Because if I go like this, with my braids and so on, to the road, to the streets of his hometown, I get thrown eggs after me. Well, they think I'm Gypsy, and yes, a part of me is Sinti Roma. The other part is Siberian. I'm not considered white people. It still exists. But we all can make a difference by becoming teachers. And you all have my prayer to become teachers. And I hope you follow that path.
Does anybody else have anything they wanted to say on that topic? Oh, yeah, over here.
Do you know what, I don't think I'm going to be able to express this well. Your original question on the change now compared to then, I think it was much more a world that respected, or at least falsely tried to appear as if they respected rules. Honestly, I'm a little surprised in the conversation. I know you're speaking more historically, how this happened. I only see it nowadays. I don't want to say anything hurtful here. I don't think preaching to the choir is absolutely right. I don't think the church has the power now that it did. I see this as racism and abuse. And I don't feel, I'm going to say it wrong, I'm involved in Big Brothers, Big Sisters, sexual abuse things, and I think that this is what it is, and that same history is what brought those things around. Ego, power, rules that didn't pertain. So people went underneath and did it anyhow. But like I agree that the spirituality of the church is stronger now compared to the rules. I mean, I know there's power in the church now, but I don't think it's, honestly, I don't even see it as a church issue anymore. I see it as racism and abuse. So this conversation tonight has totally surprised me, except I feel that we were given a history.
We're building.
This was the
Yeah.
reason to see where it comes from, because in the olden times, that's really, honestly, truly what Christians believed. What the first Christian priests that came over here, they wanted to convert to this all-saving God, because everybody, like scruffy little myself, was a heathen. Never mind where I lived or where my grandparents lived and whatnot. But nowadays, we have to see where we came from, and we have to see how this happened. And so to make sure that it doesn't happen again. Because there is the majority of Canadians, and I heard this very, very often, that said it was just some bad schools. And it was not only bad schools. And they said, yeah, the kids didn't get enough to eat. Guys, I tell you one thing, way back then when the residential schools did not have enough to feed the kids because nobody had anything to eat over here in Canada. You probably don't know that. But everybody had been hunted out by professional hunters. Everything that was edible everywhere. We killed how many millions of passenger pigeons within 5 years? Oh. Everyone. You know who ate them? The rich people. It wasn't any one of you. The bears were almost extinct. The deer were almost extinct. Everybody else, every animal, every rabbit, everything was almost extinct. There was nothing we could have fed those kids because nobody had anything to eat. People were dying on the sitting in front of the railroad in downtown Winnipeg because they were freezing to death. There was no food anymore, anywhere.
But to respond to what you're saying, I think what we're trying to do is, it's hard for anybody to understand where people are coming from if you don't see both sides. Like, hopefully this made you understand a little bit why the Indigenous community can be, sometimes harsh or like they're fighting back, and sometimes it looks like they're going. The same, with the African Americans and the black people when Floyd died. Up to this point, everybody's, heard of the police brutality and heard about all this. But once we saw it, the world got, well, that's kind of what this, we heard about the concentration camps and the whole world, the Jews and all that. But nobody really understood or saw exactly what's going on. And later when we build on it, it's some of the stuff that's still going on in our northern communities. Like, there's no high schools, so they're being shipped to Timmins if they want to go to high school, but in Timmins they're getting stolen onto boats and shipped off for prostitutes in other parts of the world, right? Like, those are things in Canada people don't think it, we'd see the Ethiopian babies on the news, and we'd send our money. But what about the Indigenous people who are only a day's drive north that are bathing in water? Like, these babies, they have sores on them, and I can't speak for everyone because I've only been to a couple of the northern reserves, but and they don't, well, why don't they move? Well, if you're born in Moose Factory, you get there by train. If you want to remove your belongings on that train, you're talking $100 for a suitcase. So how are they going to move? They don't have any money. They don't have anything. They can't just get themselves out of some of this, right? So I think what we're trying to do is just explain to you where some of it went, and then maybe explain some of the anger. Because if this is the way you were treated, all your life, you walk into a store and somebody, is doing that to you, or, my grandfather, who was tormented, bullied beyond belief just because he looked Indigenous. He didn't even let anybody, he didn't even acknowledge it. Then you understand why you know, all that, the anger and, you know, the 60s scoop, you know, where we just went down and we took all those indigenous children off the reserves and left with them, you know. I mean, that's not that long ago, the 60s.
I personally met First Nations people in the Lakota Sioux Reserve that had been, as children, infected with pock-infested lynxes. They all, Malcolm, he was full of the pox to get rid of the Lakota Sioux because they wanted the land because there was uranium on them. So it's not so long ago. And it's...
This is heavy, and I'm just noticing that we only have 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Can I lighten it? And again, just because I work at Schofield Sound Sexual Assault Services for quite a while, and I don't want to leave you all off in a negative spot. So the fun question is just connecting us a little bit to show that we're not as different as we think. Like Michelle talked about, you know, the plant medicines and this stuff, and I just, you know, you used to, if you were making plant medicines, you know, you were a witch, you were burned at the stake, you know, all this kind of stuff. But almost everybody here uses plant medicine, right? And I just want to throw it out, like, what plant medicines do you guys use? What's some of the plant medicines you use? Yeah?
Mushrooms.
Yeah? Yep. Chamomile tea. How many people like a chamomile tea before you go to bed? Right? Like, people don't think about it, but those are the things that we were, you know, condemned for at one point, is, you know, making potions and stuff like that. But anyways, just as a fun thing, you know, shout out any kind of plant medicines you use.
Marijuana.
Yeah. There you go, that's a good one.
Unique oil.
Aloe.
Aloe, yeah?
Hey.
Yeah.
Chocolate, cacao.
Yes.
Peppermint tea.
Dark chocolate is women's best friend.
Coffee.
Yeah.
Rose hips.
I mean, if you think about it, what's in all our shampoos? What's in our conditioners? What's in our hand creams? Yeah, a lot of it is plant medicines. You know, my grandbaby, clove essential oil, and she uses it for teething. And I'll tell you, I get that little bottle with those drops, and I put a drop on my finger, and she gets excited. I rub it on her gums, and it's almost instant relief. And all it is just clove essential oils. And when my daughter first, I mean, because I mean, I believe in plant medicines, but essential oils, you know, it took me a little bit to get into the groove of it. But as soon as I saw a baby, you know, you rub it on, and then you rub it on her gums and it instant stops. You know, it's, and again, you know, misunderstandings of some of those things led to a lot of this kind of stuff. Well, no, the only other thing was, is there anything that anybody, you know, learned today that they're happy they did, or is there something that, you know, you're hoping?
Many happy things to be learned today.
Well, no, but is there anything that you're glad, you know, a reason why you're glad you came, or something that you learned that was like, oh, or anything anybody wants to say? Yeah.
I have a great deal of gratitude for you coming to share with us and to put yourselves also repeating it, the stories, and putting those thoughts and those feelings through yourselves again and repeating that. It's appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any comments, questions, anything anybody has before Michelle closes us out?
I think the history is very important, because my history is not great. And a lot of this is quite new to me, what happened in 1500. So it does sort of, as you're trying to do, sort of put a starting point, how this started way back when, and it's very interesting.
Oh, Miigwech. Okay, yeah, as I say, everybody kind of has their own, like, for the Haudenosaunee is Nyawa. But if you say Miigwech, it really doesn't matter which indigenous tribe, they all seem to get Miigwech.
And here, in the States,
Okay, well, again, I'm,
no, in the
it's,
States it's more
yes, it's, oh, yeah, that's true too.
When's the next gig?
Pardon?
When's the next gig?
Next Tuesday. It's every Tuesday for the next, like, 3 more Tuesdays, yeah. So does that mean you're coming back? We haven't scared you away? We'll see how good we are next week when we see how many people come back. If only 2 or 3 years come back, we'll know we didn't do very well.
He doesn't scare easy.
No.
I realized that I neglected to do something. I did not thank the Lake Base District for donating the space and the time. They came and helped me set up, and they welcomed us. And today I got a call from one of the district employees saying this is a good thing. I'm really glad it's happening in Lake Base.
Well, that's beautiful.
Yeah, it was.
Just wondering what's next now that we've gone through that awful history and that will it be more upward?
It doesn't get always easier, I'm just saying, some of it, because we still have to talk about the residential schools and stuff like that, so it's not, that's why we tried, Michelle's idea to do about the whole Columbus thing and stuff, we're trying to put a little bit of humor into it, but do you want to speak about it, well, I think it was on the flyer what we were doing for the next few weeks. I can't remember off the top of my head, so if you want to.
We have been given a curriculum, what we should go through. The curriculum basically comes from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Ontario. So next week I want to go through a little bit of history, what happened, you know, one after the other. That's still a truth part. And then we can go into what we can do now. We can have an open circle like this. And Denise wants to talk a little bit about women. We have been asked to please cover the most important aspects of the Indian Act, enfranchisement, and yeah, residential schools.
That's going to be a hard one.
And the last one, I want to see that we can do, what can we do now? What, as allies, as, you know, exactly what is good and what is not so good. I mean, going to take as much and asking for $100 is probably on the side of not so good. So, but there is things that allies and I heard a very good word that is a go-between. You know, go-between the strictly Catholic churches that have this really strict worldview, and they still have it today, and the different native nations. You become a go-between. Number one, by understanding that, okay, that really was what the belief system and what the world was like back then. And now we are different. And so you can explain a lot of things. You can also, you know, set things right. If you see something that's not quite okay, speak up and things like that. So we will do a more open circle about all these things. And the other thing is that I'm also willing to, this was 4 circles that we do for teachings in the mandate of this government grant or this grant from the churches. But I'm open and willing to come January, and we can meet if there is a place provided that is not outside in an igloo somewhere, but maybe inside with hydro, Kind of good for my bad back. And I will just bring open teachings, and you can ask me anything about, my work or whatever, the stuff that you got here. So I will bring teachings into the community.
Yeah, and the other thing is, one of the biggest questions I always get is, well, what can I do? What can I do now? And I'm also pooling, I'm involved in the Muskoka Indigenous Friendship Group, so I'm pooling some of the people there. I have friends on different reserves, so I'm branching out and asking people on some of the things. And we'll break some of that down. You guys will be able to come up with some great ideas, but even just little things, like when somebody makes fun of, our regalias and calls it a costume. Well, we don't call, the priest robes, costumes. So, just little things like that, we can educate, we can work together. And they may sound like little, but when you're at a powwow and you got people giggling and laughing at you because of, I've been to powwows where, people have been disrespectful and stuff like that. And so it's just little things like that. And that's what the last one's about is.
Little things will turn to bigger things.
Exactly.
You will also, educate yourself. And then once you know more, then you can become the teacher.
You do better when you know better, right? And that's partly what this is all about. Anybody have any other things before Michelle does her thing? And then, as I say, we'll stay for a few minutes, and if anybody has any questions about some of the articles that we have here, we can explain some of it. We will be bringing a lot of this back. Please ask before you touch anything here, anything back there, the books and that kind of stuff, by all means, and the tobacco and the sage and the sweetgrass back there. If anybody wants to take a little piece of tobacco, there's a few, and say a prayer, whether thanks or any intentions, and then drop it out in nature, please, not on the concrete. You're more than welcome to do that also.
Margaret has made coffee, and then when you're finished your chair, it would be great. Other glass, I know what to do with them.
Yeah, you can buy them online and stuff. They're just, Okay.
So when we have a sacred circle like this, I did the opening. It was more a land acknowledgement than a prayer. But it is traditional that we call closing. And so I will foster on you a traditional closing prayer, like the way I would do it in our medicine. In beauty and balance, I give thanks. I give thanks for your patience, for your open ears with which you listen, for your open heart into which you took the teachings, and your open mind with which you will go out into the community to speak your truth and our truth, so that its words may reach the children of the future. In beauty and in balance, I give thanks to my personal spirits for having helped me today to speak here. And in beauty and in balance, I give thanks to the spirits of the four directions, the powers of the East that give all of us courage and confidence to walk into the future. The powers of the South, the sacred medicine of family, the sacred medicine of teaching and learning, the sacred medicine of friendship and the circle, the sacred medicine of community. It was all here today, and so I give thanks. And in beauty and in balance, I give thanks to the medicine powers of the West. The powers of health and healing. May you all carry that out into the community, to your loved ones. To everyone who couldn't be here today. To everyone who needs it. Everyone who's mourning. Everyone whose heart is heavy and sad. May they feel the healing that is in the circle. May also the strength to walk away from things and behaviors that do not work for the greater good. May we have the strength that the West gives to walk away from all these things into a new dawn, into a new light. And in beauty and in balance, I give thanks to the spirits of the North, ancestors, the powers of dreams and trance, to have guided medicine people through the ages, not only Native Americans, but medicine people all around the globe. I give thanks to the ancestor spirits whose blood I carry. I give thanks to the ancestor spirits that carried Denise forward into this generation to be my buddy and my aid here in teaching tonight. I give thanks to everyone and everything that has been taught that is good in this world. Many things also include Christianity. And I give thanks to Mother Earth, who has provided us with a safe place to listen to these teachings, who has provided us with a harvest that we will be safe this winter. And I give thanks to Father Sky, the home of Grandfather Sun, Grandmother Moon. And I give thanks to everyone, everywhere, out there, in the black blanket of Father Sky. And I give Greg strength and love, devotion to a great mystery that is within all of you all the time. Everywhere and within anybody. May there not be any harm to any living being on earth. May all be safe and walk in beauty. Get you make rich. Shayana. Thank you.